Catherine the Great may have had a mysterious love of horses, there were persistent rumors, albeit unproven, that Catherine the Great had an intimate relationship with a horse, fueling some of the most bizarre stories about her reign. These allegations have since been debunked, but they still make for a strange chapter in her history. George Washington's teeth were not made of wood. Contrary to popular belief, George Washington's false teeth were not made from wood, but rather a mix of ivory, gold, and even teeth from humans and animals. The Titanic was not the first ship to sink after hitting an iceberg. The Titanic famously sank in 1912, but just 14 years earlier, a ship called the SS Minnetonka also collided with an iceberg and sank, though it was much smaller and fewer lives were lost. Woolly mammoths were still alive when the Great Pyramids were built. While the last known woolly mammoths died out around 1650 BCE, this is after the Great Pyramid was completed around 2560 BCE. So some of these prehistoric creatures may have roamed the earth during the construction of the pyramids. Einstein was offered the presidency of Israel. In 1952, after the death of Israel's first president, Chaim Weizmann, Albert Einstein was offered the position, though he declined, stating he had no experience in politics. Ancient Romans used urine for teeth whitening. The ancient Romans valued urine for its ammonia content and used it as a mouthwash and even as a teeth whitening agent. Viking helmets didn't have horns. Contrary to popular belief, Viking helmets were not adorned with horns. This misconception likely arose in the 19th century, when artists started adding horns for dramatic effect. Real Viking helmets were simple and practical for battle. The first computer bug was a moth. In 1947, engineers at Harvard University discovered a moth stuck in a relay of their computer, causing it to malfunction. They recorded it as the first computer bug, and the term stuck ever since. There was a war between the US and a pig. The Pig War was a small conflict in 1859 between the United States and Great Britain, triggered by the shooting of a pig on San Juan Island. It resulted in no casualties, and was resolved peacefully with the establishment of the border between Canada and the US. Napoleon wasn't actually short. Despite the common belief that Napoleon Bonaparte was very short, he was actually about average height for his time, standing around 5 feet 7 inches to 5 feet 8 inches. The confusion arose from differences between French and British measurement systems, and the myth persisted due to political cartoons. The first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic was Amelia Earhart. Amelia Earhart became the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean in 1932, cementing her place in history as one of the most famous and pioneering figures in aviation. Winston Churchill was once struck by a car and survived. In 1931, Churchill was hit by a car while crossing the street in New York City. He suffered a serious head injury, but remarkably, he survived and continued his political career. The ancient Egyptians had a form of toothpaste. The Egyptians used a mixture of powdered pumice, crushed rock, and vinegar to clean their teeth. It wasn't as effective as modern toothpaste, but it was an early form of dental hygiene. A cow played a key role in the founding of the United States. The first American Revolution casualties included a cow. When British soldiers attacked a farm in Massachusetts, they shot a cow, sparking outrage among colonists. The event is believed to have been one of the early triggers of the American Revolutionary War. A year was once only 10 months long. In ancient Rome, the calendar originally had only 10 months, with no months in the winter. This meant the year began in March and ended in December. The months of January and February were added later to align the calendar with the solar year. In medieval times, people believed that bathing was dangerous. During the Middle Ages, Many people believed that bathing was bad for their health and could lead to disease. Public bathhouses were often closed down during outbreaks of the plague. The first recorded use of OMG was in 1917. While internet slang like OMG is common today, it was first used in a letter written by British naval officer Admiral John Arbuthnot Fisher to Winston Churchill in 1917, proving that shorthand has been around for quite some time. There was a phantom army used in World War II. The US created a fake army during World War II, known as the Ghost Army, which used inflatable tanks, fake radio transmissions, and sound effects to deceive the German military and divert attention from real military operations. A French king died from a lightning strike twice. King Louis XVI of France was struck by lightning on 2 different occasions during his reign. On both occasions, he survived, but his bad luck with lightning was seen as a sign of divine disfavor. A Swedish king was once assassinated by a porcupine. King Charles XII of Sweden was said to have been killed during a battle in 1718 by a gunshot wound, but some legends claim he was fatally struck by a porcupine's quills after the battle, adding an odd twist to his death. The longest hiccuping spree lasted 68 years. Charles Osborne of the United States hiccuped continuously from 1922 until 1990. He reportedly had 430 million hiccups over this 68-year period. In 1533, a 12-year-old girl became the Queen of France. In a shocking turn of events, Catherine de' Medici became Queen of France after her 15-year-old husband, King Henry II, died. She was only 12 at the time, and she later became one of the most powerful and influential rulers of France, navigating a series of royal intrigues and religious wars. The first recorded instance of fake news was in 44 BC in ancient Rome, during the time of Julius Caesar's assassination. Rumors spread that Caesar had been killed for attempting to make himself king. The spreading of misinformation about political events is not a modern phenomenon. The shortest reign of a monarch was just 20 minutes. In 1599, King Louis II of Bavaria was declared king for a mere 20 minutes. The reign ended when his cousin, the true heir, took the throne, and Louis was quickly deposed. His brief reign is the shortest in recorded history. In 1815, the eruption of Mount Tambora caused the year without a summer. The eruption of Mount Tambora in Indonesia in 1815 was the most powerful in recorded history. It caused global temperatures to drop significantly, leading to crop failures, famine, and widespread hardship in 1816, which became known as the Year Without a Summer. A 500-year-old shipwreck was found with its cargo intact. In 2007, the wreckage of a Portuguese ship from the early 1500s was found off the coast of Brazil. Remarkably, the ship's cargo of gold, silver, and other treasures was still intact after more than 500 years underwater, thanks to the preservation properties of the deep ocean. A man once lived for 150 years. The oldest recorded person, according to some accounts, was a man named Li Qingyuan, a Chinese herbalist, who allegedly lived to the age of 150. While there's some skepticism about the exact figure, many believe he lived well over 120 years, which was considered extraordinarily long even by modern standards. There was an emperor of the United States. Joshua A. Norton declared himself Emperor of the United States and Protector of Mexico in 1859. He wasn't recognized by the U.S. government, but he became a beloved figure in San Francisco, and people even obeyed his imperial decrees. He was treated like royalty until his death in 1880. In 1812, the Russian winter didn't defeat Napoleon, disease and starvation did. While many believe it was the harsh Russian winter that forced Napoleon's army to retreat, Historians argue that the real cause was disease and starvation. The Russian strategy of scorched earth left Napoleon's army without supplies, leading to the collapse of his invasion. The last public execution by guillotine in France occurred in 1977. The guillotine, a symbol of the French Revolution's reign of terror, continued to be used as a form of capital punishment in France until 1977, when the last person was executed by guillotine, just 2 years before France abolished the death penalty altogether. In the 18th century, you could rent a fancy coffin for a day. In 18th century Europe, people sometimes rented fancy coffins to make an impression at funerals, even if they weren't actually dead. This was especially common in Paris, where people would rent elaborate coffins for display and have them carried through the streets, even if they were perfectly healthy.